Hello everyone. Today I'm going to go over everything that I use to start seeds for my garden. Now I am not starting seeds yet. I won't be starting any seeds till the middle of March, or about 8 weeks before our last frost date, which is usually sometime early to mid-May. But I figured there's probably a handful of you at least that are in a warmer growing zone than we are here in Chicago 6A. So you'll probably be starting seeds earlier than I will. So I'm going to show you everything that I have. I'm not going to set everything up completely, but I will give you an idea of how it looks when it is completely set up. And I also want to talk a little bit too about what I do start from seed versus what I don't start from seed. One thing I want to tell you though before we get started is that I am currently doing a Johnny Seed gift certificate giveaway for $100 over on Instagram. It's on Instagram because it's basically impossible to message someone through YouTube. It's much easier through Instagram. So go over there. It'll be running until this coming Monday at noon Central Time. All you have to do is go comment. You don't have to even follow me if you don't want to. You don't have to follow anyone. It's not put on by Johnny Seed. They have no idea who I am, despite the number of orders I have placed with them. But since I've been talking about all of the seeds that I've been growing, and most of them are from there, I've decided it'd be fun to do a little gift certificate giveaway. So go check that out and then make sure to finish this video. Now, I consider my seed starting setup to be more on the simpler side for a couple of reasons. One, I have a small garden, so I can't start that many seeds. I already start more seeds than I can plant in my garden, and I only use one shelving rack, whereas I know people that have whole rooms and multiple shelves dedicated to seed starting. Also, I'm a gardener who loves efficiencies. So I have narrowed down over the years what requires the fewer steps for me to do, everything that just makes it a little bit easier and less time consuming for me, because taking care of these little seedlings can take up a good chunk of time, making sure that they live until they can get outside. So anywhere that I can cut down some of the work that I have to do, I will go for it. But let me first talk a little bit about, in general, what I do and don't start from seed, or what I start from seed versus what I buy as a plant from a garden center. Now, these are just my rules, and I don't always follow them 100%, but in general, if I'm only growing one or maybe two, three-ish varieties of a single plant, because there's a lot of things I only grow one of, like one of a tomato variety, one of a particular herb. For me, it doesn't make sense to get a whole seed packet, take years to go through it, where the germination rates will decrease over time, and take the time and effort to growing that seed into a plant when I can go get it from the store for $4 or $5. Hopefully, we'll see what the prices look like this year. But for me, even though a seed packet would be cheaper, it just makes more sense to just go and get one from the garden center. It will also usually be a little bit further along than the ones I start inside. So if it's one or two, maybe leaning in three, I will go get them from the garden center. Anything that is like leaning in three or more, or any varieties that I can't find, those I will start from seed. So if I'm growing at least 3 to 4, those are all going to be started in this seed tray, even if that's all that I can fit in my garden. And there are so many varieties that I love that I would never find at a garden center here in Chicago. So how that looks in my garden is that usually my edibles, so if I'm growing herbs, like I said, I will buy plants. If I'm growing a tomato plant, a cucumber plant, I will get those as plants from the garden center. And on the reverse side, most of my cut flowers are started from seed because I'm growing multiples of them, and I have a lot of unique varieties. When I realized you could buy seeds online, because when I first started gardening, it was whatever was at Home Depot. When I realized all the flowers available online, it kind of went a little bit crazy. And every year I tell myself I'm going to start fewer seeds because I always start too many. And yet this year I'm probably going to start a little bit more than I did last year. First, I'm going to talk about what I actually start my seeds in. And this seed starting kit from Jiffy, it's completely efficiency based. So in here is the medium I grow it in. This lid acts as the humidity dome. I water directly in this tray. Water doesn't spill everywhere. There is this little plant vitamin for seedlings I put in. I don't think that's probably necessary, but it basically comes with everything but the seeds, water, and light that I need to start. And then this way I don't have to have a bunch of nursery pots on hand, a bunch of bags of seed starting soil. I don't have to then find things to put the nursery cups on so the water doesn't get everywhere. So I really like these. Now, another part of me loving efficiency or time saving is that I don't like to pot up my seedlings if I can help it. So I like to get away with starting my seeds inside and then move them outside without them outgrowing the little cells that they start in. So I specifically use this Jiffy seed starting kit. This one is labeled for tomato and vegetables. I use it for everything. And the reason I use this over the other ones is because this has the largest size pellets. So these are peat pellets. This is what you start your seeds in. And when I do start my seeds, I'll show you how to use these. I have videos from last year that I'll link down below. Again, just in case you're getting started a bit earlier than I am. But the other kits that I've found from Jiffy are the same size, but have more cells in them or more pellets. So I think the smallest one, there's 72. So there's double the amount of pellets in that one of the same size tray. So those are much smaller, which means that your plants are going to outgrow them much faster and you're gonna have to pot them up. Again, I like to try to avoid that if I can. So I really like these. I found that as long as I don't start my seedlings too early, my plants are usually very happy in here. And then when I plant them outside, I just bury the whole pellet. There's no, again, nursery containers that I have to take off and store or clean out. You just plant this directly into the soil. And sometimes they do completely break down. Sometimes I'll find a little bit left over at the end of the season when I pull my plants, but it's never inhibited the growth. And if you want to, you can also tear off this paper on the outside, but I never bother doing that. What is also great is that when I use these, so obviously all of these pellets will be used once I put them outside into the garden and then I have an empty tray. You can just buy pellet refills. So once this is empty, I keep the tray and then I just buy refills of the size that I need. So that's really useful too. It also helps to cut costs. And I will use these trays as humidity domes for propagating other things throughout the season. So I do get some use out of these. In fact, let me go find the lid so I can show you what it looks like. This is the humidity dome. It also does come with 6 labels. I find that I will need more than 6 labels usually. So the humidity domes sit on top until the seedlings actually start to sprout and you can see them growing up out of the pellets. Then the humidity dome comes off. The humidity just helps the seeds germinate a bit faster. You can kind of put this anywhere. I will typically put these in the bathroom because it's the warmest part of the house. And then I will move it under the grow lights once the seedlings sprout, unless there are seeds that need light to germinate, but I don't know if I'm growing any of those. But if I do, then I just pop them under the grow light instead of in the bathroom. Now, some people do use heating mats to warm up the seedlings and again, speed up germination. If I don't find that I really need it for seed starting, I don't get it. So I've never used a heating pad. Maybe it'll speed up the germination, but I've never noticed a huge difference in the speed of germination without having them. So I probably won't ever get heating mats. Never say never in gardening, but I've never used them and it's always worked really well for me. And then, like I said, you just pour the water in here, and not only do you pour the water in here to initially plant them, but then you just keep pouring the water into this tray to water the seedlings or fertilize them when you get to that point before you move them outside. So again, basically everything is in this kit and it's really simple. Next, let's talk about lighting. And I'm bringing my laptop out because I am doing a little experimentation this year, which I will go over in just a second. But I would definitely recommend a grow light of some sort for starting your seedlings. The only time I've been able to start them without a light at all was in our last place we were renting. There were 4 basically almost floor to ceiling windows, and it was southern exposure. So it was full sun for I don't even know how many hours, but enough hours that the seedlings were happy. However, because the sun was only coming from the windows, I did have to rotate all of the plants. I started 20 tomato plants. 20 tomato plants for one deck. I didn't plant them all, but I did have to rotate all of the plants every so often so that they didn't start just growing one direction. But that's the only time I've been able to do that. Here we have still like the door-sized windows, but it's east and west facing, so it's not getting that sun all day. And with grow lights, you can then put your seedlings wherever instead of all lined up in front of the door that you're trying to access. Now, I have used a few different grow lights over the years, and that's where I'm still experimenting this year. I did get down to what I consider my favorite, but they are more costly and I might have found a less expensive option, so we're gonna see. But in general, what I found is anything that's labeled as a grow light is almost the same thing as an LED shop light, but if it has grow light on the label, it costs more. So the first lights I used were just LED shop lights from Walmart. I don't have them anymore. I did donate them because I switched lights, but they worked completely fine. The reason I switched is these lights here just, again, cut out a few steps and made things easier. So when you are using grow lights, usually you want to start the lights close to the seedlings and then slowly raise the light as a seedling grows, because if the light's up here, when the seedling starts to sprout, it's going to get leggy and stretch trying to reach towards the light that's too far away, and that's going to weaken the seedling. So you don't want that to happen. So if you start it closer, the seedling doesn't have to reach for the light, but then as it starts to get taller, you want to raise the light. Again, that's just a few extra steps I didn't want to do. So I was watching Garden Answer, and she was talking about these lights from Gardener Supply that are high output LED. And the high output part of it means that you don't have to raise and lower these. And I've used these for 2 years now, and that is true. I don't have my seedlings go leggy. I don't have any issues with that with these lights, and I don't have to worry about remembering to raise them throughout the season. Also, I use a metal baker's rack for my seed trays, and these are magnetic, so they just stick right on. Whereas the shop lights that I got from Walmart, I had to use S-hooks and tape and then try to finagle that every time that I wanted to raise the light up. But this is just simple. I stick it on and it stays, and that's it. So because these were so easy to use, I now have 6 of these, which covers the 3 shelves that I have on my baker's rack. And yes, I only use 1 shelving rack to start all of my seeds, and I still have way too many. Now, the downside of these lights is definitely the cost. In fact, let me pull it up, because a 2-pack of these is $156, whereas an individual shop light, so if this is $156, a little bit under $80 per light, if you could get a shop light for like $20, $30 at Walmart or Target, and again, it works the same, you just might have to do a few extra steps. Because I only need 6, since I only have 3 shelves, it was worth the extra cost for me to get these and kind of cut out those steps. But if I had a whole room for growing seedlings, I would not invest in that many of these. So these were the lights I thought I was gonna stick with forever, and I am going to use them and continue to use them. But then I saw something from Soil and Margaritas where she recommended a light that is cheaper and also has high output in the name. So I went ahead and got myself some, and that's the experiment that I'm gonna run this year. So these are the lights that I'm gonna test against the Gardener Supply lights. These are Barina LED shop light. They're 3 feet, which is the length of my rack, so I probably should have gotten 3 feet of these, but I got 2 feet instead. And it does say high output. I guess it technically says hit output, but still I think that's what they mean. And then this was a pack of 6 for $75. So basically, for the price of 1 of these lights, you can get 6 of these lights. So if this works as well as this, I will feel a little bit silly, but I will get use out of all of them. And they also do look fairly similar. I went through all of the specifications. I don't 100% know what all the things like lumens and kelvins mean, but they were also very similar as well. So assuming these work and I don't have to raise and lower these and my seeds don't get leggy, these will be a better fit for me and much cheaper. So I will link both of these, but know that I have used these for years and I have not used these at all yet. So we're gonna see. But again, Soil and Margaritas recommended these, and I know that she has a fairly large seed starting room, so I trust that she knows what she's talking about. So I took these out of the box, the Barina lights, and I've been just playing around with them. It does come with a bunch of other stuff, but I can tell that this might also be a better option in a few other ways as well. So let me show you on the Gardener Supply light here. You don't have to plug in every individual light into an outlet. That would be a lot of plugs. So these 2 plug in together, and I use 2 on each shelf. I'll show you when we head over there. I use 2 on each shelf. So these are plugged in together, and then this plug right there is what I put into the power strip. So I do have to use 3 plugs total for each of the 3 shelves for the 6 lights. When I took out the other lights I just got, I immediately noticed that the cord that connects the lights is much longer. So I should be able to, if my theory holds, I should be able to plug all of the lights in together and just use one cord in the outlet because the connectors are much longer. So not only can I connect what's side by side on a shelf, this will make more sense when we're over by the shelves, but then I can also connect what's on, let's say, the top shelf down to the middle shelf because those connecting cords are so much longer. So yeah, we'll see. I'm keeping all my fingers and toes crossed that these do just as well as the Gardener Supply lights, just because the cost is so much lower. Another difference though is that these did come with the magnetic clips. It's actually a magnet screwed onto the clips. These did not. So they did come with clips, but they aren't magnetic and there's no magnet connected, but I did get my own magnets. Now I thought maybe the magnets would stick to these clips. They don't. So I'm gonna see if I can find a way to attach them and just have almost the exact same setup as this. And fingers crossed that works, because if not, I'll probably tie them to the racks. And again, I'm hoping that these don't have to be raised or lowered. I'm gonna put these on a different shelf than these at first. And if I notice that my seedlings are getting leggy with the new lights, I will immediately swap it out and make sure that I have the Gardener Supply lights on every level. But again, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I don't have to do that. So that is my lighting. That's gonna be the fun little experimentation part. If you've used these lights before, let me see the name again. It's BARRINA LED shop lights. Let me know how they do for you. But I'm really excited if I've found something that is 1/6 of the cost of these and works just as well, if not even maybe a little bit better. Next, I'll show you how I power the light with just two things. A power strip, because again, I was working with multiple plugs with the Gardener Supply lights, and then a timer. Any timer will do. I do recommend a timer because as much as you tell yourself you'll remember to turn things on and off, you'll probably forget. And if you're out of town, these will automatically turn on and off. This is also what I use for my Christmas tree, what I have for my Sancy grow light for my house plants. So I have these timers all around the house and I really like them. For my seedlings, usually setting this for 14 to 16 hours straight works really well for the seedlings. Don't leave them on all the time. Seedlings do need a period of darkness to grow, so make sure that the light's not on for too short a period or too long a period. But again, between that 14 to 16 range is usually ideal for me. The last thing I will talk about before I head over to the rack and show you how I set everything up is fertilizing. You do want to fertilize your seedlings, but you don't want to start fertilizing right away. In fact, I wait until I see 2 sets of the true leaves on a plant. So the very first leaves that you'll see of the seedling are not true leaves, they're cotyledons. Wait, because for the first few weeks of life, the seed itself contains all of the nutrients necessary for the seedling, and you can over-fertilize. Over-fertilizing is a thing, and you don't want to do that. Same thing with lights. Too much light, too much fertilizer can harm your plants. So once my seedlings do have a couple sets of their true leaves, that is when I will start fertilizing. And you want to get a fertilizer that's a bit higher in nitrogen, which will be the first number. So this one from Fox Farm called Grow Big is 644. So 6 is the nitrogen, that's the largest number. Nitrogen in fertilizer is what supports the green growth on the plants as opposed to the flowering. So this is what I use on not just my seedlings, but most of my plants before they start to flower. Other things that work really well are fish emulsion. I think that's also higher in nitrogen. I, again, just started using this liquid fertilizer and I've used it ever since because I liked it. Now, you do dilute the liquid fertilizer more when you're using it on seedlings compared to a more mature plant. So even on here, it says general feeding are 2 to 3 teaspoons per gallon of water every other watering. Whereas if I'm doing seedlings, it's half teaspoon, so it's half teaspoon versus 2 to 3 per gallon of water 1 time per week. But you can see how you dilute your fertilizer more and apply it less often for your seedlings versus the larger plants once they're moved out to your garden. So with that, let's head over to my rack. I will show you how things kind of fit together, and then I'll show you where I position it, even though it's not going to be there yet, because again, I have 2 more months before I'm even starting my first round of seeds. This is the baker's rack that I use to start all my seeds, and yes, all of the seeds from my garden do fit on here, and I always have too many. So I don't need a lot of space to start my seeds, and obviously using a vertical rack also saves some space as well. I like this for a few reasons. One, because it is metal. The magnets work on these and it's really easy to set up the lights. Two, it does have wheels, so I can move it around very easily, which I do fairly often based on where I position this, where I'll show you. But the wheels also have locks, so that way, if there's cats running around or I accidentally bump into it, I can lock it in place once it's in its spot, so it's not moving around on its own. Now let me show you kind of how the lights will work on this, the ones that at least I know how I'm gonna set them up, and then I'll at least try to place the new lights, and we can kind of get an idea of the difference. These are the Gardener Supply lights with metal clip, and it literally just clips on wherever you want it. And you can move them around a little bit if you want it more further out, more put together. It does wobble, but I've never had any issues with it falling, which is great, so the light bulb doesn't shatter. But that's how easy it is to set up. And then you want to make sure the cord is facing wherever the plug is that you're going to plug it into. But that's it. You can see though that these are not the same length as the shelves, which means that sometimes I do have to do a little bit of tray rotation. But I'm hoping with the new lights, I don't have to worry about that as much. So let me grab some of those just to kind of show you how they'll fit in here. Now, ideally, I will be able to get the magnets set up on these and get them to work. And then I'll just stick them up here the same way. And I think as you can see, these are the length of the shelves, which is always a good thing to plan on. So this would be in there like this, and then this cord would connect to the shelf below it. And that's what I was talking about with this being a longer cord that connects the lights together. I can then connect it to the light on the shelf below because that cord reaches down there, connect those together, and then I'm working with all of these just plugged in to one socket, which I think will work out really nice. So I'm gonna play around with this over the next few weeks before I have to start my seeds, and hopefully I get something figured out and I can test out these lights versus these lights. So even though my rack is here right now, and this is where my Christmas tree was, I don't leave it here when I actually start my seeds because I do want to give them just a little bit more sunlight. So I will actually wheel this rack over to these doors, and it does sit in front of the door I used to get out and this window, so that's why I have it on wheels. I don't go in and out much of the time when I'm early on starting seeds, but as it gets a little bit later in the season, I will. And that's, again, just to give them a little bit more sun. They probably would be fine with just the lights over here, but I don't know. I like doing that. So that is everything I use to start my seeds. And again, I think it's a pretty simple and efficient setup process. I am looking forward to experimenting with the lights and see how those do. I will obviously keep you updated, but I still have 2 months before I'm starting any of my seedlings. Again, I will link down below showing how I use the trays, actually plant my seeds, so that if you are getting a head start, you can watch those videos from last year. But as I continue on through this season, I will share that with you for 2025 as well. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if there's any additional items you use for seed starting that you really love, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.